Okay, Shavua Tov, good Tavach, good week. The different language, Farsi, I don't know how to say it yet. I'd like to thank the Javazads for offering their home for their first show group this year. Their house should be used only for smachot, only for good things. Should only gather for good things. The topic tonight is life through the eyes of Chassidus.
You know what? Lord is mother.
Life through the eyes of Chassidus.
Wow.
We just celebrated in the Chassidic calendar the day called Yutas Kislev, which is the day the first Chabad Rebbe was released from prison. The day that the decree against disseminating and spreading out the teachings of Chassidus, there was a decree against it, and on that day the decree was broken and permission was given to spread out the teachings of Chassidus, which are the inner secrets of Torah. Hanukkah also is a festival that's very connected to the inner lights of Torah, because Hanukkah deals with oil, Hanukkah deals with lights. So the Shabbat between Yutas Kislev and Hanukkah would be appropriate to speak about life in general and life through the eyes of Chassidus, meaning to try to figure out a few aspects in life, how it helps us to live. How it helps us to live. We're not covering a lot of things tonight because we can't, obviously. I want to bring out a few points, and for each point, bring out a practical story that happened, not with tzaddikim, with regular people, that brings out a point of what we're planning to discuss in Chassidus itself. It's known that the Alter Rebbe, as it was known, the first Chabad Rebbe, was called in by his Rebbe, the disciple, the Maggid of Mitzvich, who was a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov. And he called him in and he said to him, I want you to know that you have a very, very special soul. It's called an Neshama Chadash, or whatever that means. It's a new soul. It's a very, very lofty soul. And you are given unbelievably great abilities. But, and here's what's a very important point, therefore, you have a tremendous amount of responsibility in your life. Because you were given greater powers, you are given greater responsibilities. In other words, like this. Because God created the world, Hashem created the world, the Chassidic approach to everything in life is positive. Even bad things are good. Good things are even better. Very good things are too great even to talk about. And the truth of the matter is, according to Chassidic philosophy, the worse something is, the potential is far much greater, much greater than if it wouldn't be so bad. So number one, from the Chassidic approach to life, because everything that happens in the world is from God, God is the essence of good, God is the ultimate level of good. The nature of good is to do good. So therefore, one of the primary doctrines in Chassidic philosophy is everything is good. And therefore, if you're given certain talents, certain abilities, certain money, no matter what a person is given, the first thing Chassidic philosophy teaches us is don't think it's just because I need to enjoy it and it's all for me and whatever I want I could do. It doesn't work like that. The Gemara tells Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the famous Rebbe who compiled the Mishnah, he would honor wealthy people. The Gemara says Rebbe himself was so wealthy that the guy that took care of the animals in the barns was richer than King Shapur of Persia at that time. The guy that took care of the animals of Rabbi was richer than Shvar Malka. So Rabbi was an extremely wealthy person. Why did Rabbi honor rich people? Because they're better, because they have money? 100% not. Don't get me started about that. They're not. Why did Rabbi honor people that had money? Because Rabbi said, if God entrusted these people, and God trusted these people to give him the money, that means God trusted that they're going to know what to do with the money. And they're only going to do good things with the money. Because a Jew needs to understand whatever we have, whether it's a good head, good heart, no matter what it is, good looks, it's not to use for selfish things. The Torah tells us, Chassidus tells us, that we need to understand God gave it to us for a purpose. We need to know the purpose. I'm going to go through a bunch of stories. It's very interesting because the Baal Shem Tov said also, whatever happens to a person, and this is a very interesting statement, that's a revolutionary statement that the Baal Shem Tov made, the founder of the Chassidic movement, there is no such a thing as coincidence. There is no thing as a coincidence. When Rabbi Jonathan, Lord Jonathan Sachs, before he was a rabbi, he went into the Rebbe for a private audience with some other students. And that's when the Rebbe told him he should become a rabbi. And that changed his entire life. He became Jonathan Sachs, the chief rabbi of England. He was telling the Rebbe in passing, the situation we find ourselves in, that's what he said, the situation I find myself in, the Rebbe stopped him. He said, a Jew doesn't find himself in a situation. God puts you in the situation. There is no such thing, coincidental. I happen to find myself in a situation. The Rebbe said to him, no. God puts you in every situation. Any situation a person's in is because God put you there. And therefore, we need to understand, if my purpose in life is to do meaningful things with the talents God, or the possessions God gave us, life takes upon a different meaning. Rather than being a taker, life, according to Chassidus, means you have to be a giver. You have to be giving. There's a story with a guy, okay? His friends were going to a certain city, and he wanted to get on a plane. By the time he woke up, it was too late, and he wanted... Anyway, he got onto a flight that he didn't want to go onto. Okay? It was from, I think, New York to Chicago, or Chicago to New York, one of those places. He gets on the plane, he's tired, he's cranky, he wants to sleep. All of a sudden, the plane taxis down the runway. The pilot gets on the speakerphone and says, guess what? We're at 25th in line. So you know everybody, 25th in line, that's about 2 hours. Everybody goes, oh, the whole plane is kvetching. Then a few minutes later, the pilot gets back onto the microphone and the loudspeaker, and he says, by the way, we were in such a rush to leave because the plane came in late, we forgot to flush the plumbing system on the plane. Therefore, we need to go back to the gate. We need to go back to the gate to flush the plumbing system. You know, it's a problem, it's a health problem. The plane went ballistic. The people went crazy. They come back to the gate, and all of a sudden the pilot gets on the phone. He said, by the way, we did flush it. But we were in such a rush we didn't record it. So now we're going back onto the runway. Okay? I don't know what line they're in. This Chabad guy, he's going crazy, he's plotting, he's exploding, he wants to sleep. God, let me sleep. So, guy helps, he sits next to another person. Okay? He's a Chabadnik. He knows that nothing is coincidental, there's divine providence. Obviously, he needs to make contact with this guy and start talking to him about Judaism, or if he's not Jewish, 7 Noahide laws. So he turns to him and he starts talking, and then he says, by the way, are you Jewish? He says, well, it's a hard answer because my mother's Jewish, my father's a religious Catholic, and I was baptized. So I don't know really if I'm Jewish or not. So the Chabad guy said to him, you should know that you are 100% Jewish. If your mother's Jewish, you're 100% Jewish. And he was talking to him the whole flight about Judaism. Finally, he says to him, in the middle of the flight, he says, maybe you want to put on tefillin? And he says, I never did this before. He puts on tefillin with the guy. First time in the guy's life he ever put on tefillin. He never knew he was Jewish before. Then he finds out, as they're talking, that he's going to be going to Madison, Wisconsin, on campus. So the Chabadnik says, my friend is the Chabad guy on Madison, Wisconsin campus. So he puts him, you want me to put you in touch? He said, sure. And that was the end of the flight. 2 years later, he finds out that guy became extremely active in the Chabad of Madison. He became religious. And then he was moving to Wichita, Kansas. This guy was moving to Wichita, Kansas. And he was the one that arranged for Chabad, which is now open in Wichita, Kansas. What did it start from? A pain in the you-know-what plane trip. But the guy realized, what would a normal person do? Go bother me and go to sleep and go to sleep. Look what happened. He realized there's no such thing as coincidence. By the way, I want to tell you guys, even the shul people don't know this. There's Chabad in Sweden. There's Chabad in Sweden. Where did Chabad in Sweden come from? From our shul. Chabad in Beverly Hills got Chabad in Sweden going. How? There was a couple that moved here with the Shustermans. They were named Ben Menachems. She's a therapist and she's an expert in epilepsy. For business reasons, they had to move to LA. They moved to Beverly Hills. They were members of our shul. They were always involved in the classes and the davening. They were always in our shul. And then, for whatever reason, they had to move back to Sweden. So he said, I must make a Chabad in Sweden. How can I be built out of Chabad in Sweden? So he pushed, and now there's Chabad in Sweden. This is a long time ago. This is like 30 years ago. But where did it start from? Because a guy happened to pop into our shul and do things with that. One little incident. You're sitting next to somebody. God teaches Chassidic life teaches us why. Why are you next to this person, not next to somebody else? Because God wants you to be involved with that person and see what acts of goodness and kindness are you able to do for that person. That's what Chassidus teaches us. The next thing is, any situation you're in is another important life mission, by the way. Any situation you're in, make the best of it. You know what they say, if they give you lemons, make lemonade? Okay. Any situation you're in, make the best of it. I'm going to tell you another story. By the way, these stories I just heard a few days ago. It's interesting. There's a Chabad guy in Toulouse, France. Okay? He lives an hour and a half walk from his shul, from the Chabad house. So every Shabbos morning he walks with his kids an hour and a half to the Chabad house for the minyan, Shabbos morning. One time, 45 minutes into the walk, he realizes he forgot to bring the key. He used to wear a key on his Shabbos belt. He forgot to bring the key to the shul. And he's the only one that had the key. So he's 45 minutes. He says, wait a minute, I'm going to go back 45 minutes and then walk another hour and a half. By the time I get to davening will be over and people will not be able to get into the shul. They're all going to leave. So he looks around and he sees there's a police station. Okay? He walks into the police station. He says, can I please speak to the captain? Yeah, sure. Captain comes over. He says, I have a problem. Obviously, this is all in French. He says, I have a problem. I have a key, and I need the key for my Chabad house. And I left the key in my house, and I can't drive, and I need to get the key. What he was trying to get the cop to do was to go to the house and get the key. But sometimes not a Yiddish cop doesn't work like that. The guy says, okay, I'll do you a favor. You want? I'll drive you to your house and we'll get the key. He says, no, I'm sorry. I can't drive in a car. It's Shabbat. I can't drive in a car. What I'm asking is you to go to my house and get the key, and meanwhile I'll keep walking to the synagogue, and you'll meet me at the synagogue with the key. Finally, he got it. The captain got it. He said, okay, fine, I'll do it. He walks to the shul. He was already late. He comes to shul. There's a bunch of people already waiting to get into the shul. They can't. So he tells the guy the story, what happened. He said, don't worry, we're soon going to get the key. One of the guys says to his friend, that's a Baba Meister, the rabbi. You know what he really wants? Why is he telling us the story? He wants me to drive to his house and get the key, because, I drive anyway in Shabbat. So I'm going to drive to the house, I'll get the key. That's what he really wants. I don't believe the story, a captain bringing a key. It doesn't make sense. He said, no, the guy's bringing, no. Anyway, the guy takes his car, goes to the rabbi's house. Obviously, the key was already gotten. By the time he got back to the shul, they're already middle of davening. They're by Yishtabach already. It blew the guy's mind so much. At that moment, this Jew said, I will never drive on Shabbat again. He became Shomer Shabbat. Why? Because of a crazy situation with the key. It's in a negative situation. There's something terrible going on. But you know what? The rabbi made the best of it. He made the best of it. And because of that, somebody became Shomer Shabbat from the fact that the key was left at his house. Why do you think? Let me ask you a question. Let me tell you the way it works on the Chassidic philosophy from the Rebbe's perspective. You know why he forgot the key in his house? He never forgets the key. Why did God want him to forget the key? Because God needed this whole story to happen. So how did it happen? First, God makes him forget the key. And then, where does he remember? Right outside the police station. That he can go talk to the cop. This is part of a master plan that God has for the last 5,700 years of creation. This is a plan God has that a Jew needs to become Shomer Shabbat because the rabbi left his key at home. Now tell that to somebody. A guy became Shomer Shabbat because the rabbi left the key in his house. It sounds ridiculous. But Chassidic life says, Chassidic thought says, that's what life is really all about. The crazy of things comes to the craziest of happenings. Good, bad, it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, happens. And this is a very important lesson that we need to think about. Okay. Another thing we need to understand from a Chassidic point of view. There is nothing that's unimportant. There is nothing that's unimportant. The slightest detail in life is of utmost importance. Why? Because of the slight details coming from God, and God is running the master plan of the world, there are no minute details. Every detail has a remarkable lesson. I'm going to tell you another story. And this is a mind-blowing story. Again, these are not Rebbes. These are simple people that these stories happen to. There's a guy, a lot of you people know, I'm not going to say any names. There was a guy, he lives in, we call it Simcha Monica. Santa Monica, we call it Simcha Monica. We don't want to say Santa. So we say Simcha. Simcha Monica. St. Louis is called Shana Louis. I mean, we just call it instead of whatever. Everyone spoke about not saying Santa was a priest. Okay, whatever, that's not for now. There's a guy who lives in Monica, who's called Monica. His brother had a boy in Fairfax. Okay, Monica to Fairfax, 11 miles, by the way. The bris was on Shabbos. He was going to go with his wife to the bris for Shabbos. They're going to move into Fairfax. So, they leave 3 hours before Shabbos. To go from Monica to Fairfax.
Walk?
No. Before Shabbat.
Oh, before.
They're going to drive. Whatever happened, they saw they're not going to make it for Shabbat. Traffic, accidents, I don't know. God has a great sense of humor, by the way. And therefore, when you learn Chassidus, everything that happens in life you really laugh at because God really has a great sense of humor. These are hysterical things. They left 3 hours before Shabbat and they had to turn around and go home. He said, you know what? I'll miss the bris. He meets one of his friends in Shul Friday night. He tells him the story. So his friend says to him, guess what? So you're going to walk. You're going to walk. You're going to have a long walk Shabbat morning to Fairfax for the bris. He thinks to himself, I never dreamt about doing that. It's 11 miles. It's a long walk. Then he says to himself, you know, it's divine providence. This guy said it to me. You know what? I'm going to walk. And he planned his trip. He's going to go from Monaco. He's going to stop at Westwood. In Westwood, he has a good friend, Schwartzy, Rabbi Schwartz. Remember, some of you remember him? He's going to stop in his house. He's going to leave 4:30 in the morning. He's going to stop at Schwartzy's. How long? It doesn't matter. I can wake him up, knock on the door, and wake up. It doesn't matter. And then from there, I'll go to Beverly Hills. He had a friend in Beverly Hills. And then from there, the guy has a pool, so go to mikveh in the morning, and he'll have breakfast there, and then he'll keep walking to La Brea. So he gets up Shabbos morning, bright and early. He goes, walks to Westwood, knocks on the door. They're not opening. Knocks on the door again. Finally, a lady opens the door and says, you can't come in here. We are having a ladies' Shabbaton. You can't come. You can't walk. You can't. They're all sleeping. You can't walk in here. He says, my God, do me a favor. Can I have some juice or some water? Give me something to drink. I'm dead from this walk. Even from Monaco to West is a long walk. He says, give me something to drink at least. So he said, okay, that will do. So they open the doors a little bit, and they stick out a bottle of water with some cups. Okay, he drank a little bit. Keeps walking to Beverly Hills. He was hoping to cool down in a cold pool mikveh. The pool's empty. Comes to the guy in Beverly Hills. Okay, he gives him what to eat at least. Finally, he comes. He makes it to La Brea at 9:30 in the morning. He started at 4:30. He finally got to La Brea at 9:30 in the morning. He comes to his brother's house. His brother says to him the following. It's interesting. Last night at the Sholem Zachar, Friday night before Bris, you have the people come over. So this brother of his had connections with Chabad people and non-Chabad people. So his brother says to him, last night at the Sholem Zachar, there was a whole debate going on if you're going to walk or not to the Bris. All the non-Chabad people say, no way. He's no way he's going to walk. The Chabad people said, for sure he's walking. The only time is when is he going to get here? But everybody said he's going to walk. Okay. Comes to the bris. Fine. Bris is over. That's it. End of story, seemingly. A few years later, this person in Monaco gets a phone call from a rabbi in the RCC, and he says there's a girl that's became religious, and she needs a place to stay. She's going to be in Monaco for Shabbos. She needs a place to stay in Monaco for Shabbos. Can you host her? He said, sure. No problem. They host this girl in their house over Shabbos. Over Shabbos, the meal, they're getting to talk. What made you religious? How did you become religious? So she says, I started getting involved in Yiddishkeit, but I had one big problem. I couldn't not drive on Shabbat. That was the only thing that was a setback for me becoming religious. But she tells the guy in Monaco, she says, but let me tell you what happened once. We were once at a ladies' Shabbaton in Westwood, and this guy was walking from Monaco to La Brea, and he stopped by the house to have a drink. I said to myself, the girl says to him, I said to myself, if this guy can walk from Monaco to La Brea, not to drive in a car, that's it. I am not driving anymore on Shabbat. So the guy turns to her and says, guess what? That was me. The true story, that was me. Now, did he think, open the go, walk, this? God has a great sense of humor. But a little tiny detail, okay? Whatever it is, look what happens. One detail. Okay, Chassidus also says like this. Chassidus says that, we mentioned this before, but I'll elaborate on it a little bit. The more difficult something is, the more you know you have to do it. Why is God making it so difficult for you? Because God wants you to do it. And by the way, it says in Chassidic books, if you have two choices to do, one's easy, one's difficult, do the difficult one. There's two mitzvahs. One you like doing, one you don't like doing. You know which one you should do? The one you don't like doing. Because it's more important to do a mitzvah you don't like doing. I'm going to tell you a personal story that happened with me. The boys in the yeshiva go out summertime. It's called Merkishlichus. We go visit the various cities around America spreading Judaism. Now they go around the world spreading Judaism. We went in Pierce. So I was with my friend, who now is the head Chabad Rabbi in Pittsburgh. We went to different places together. We were in Texas. We come to El Paso, Texas, and we went to Army base. In El Paso, Texas, outside El Paso, there was an American Army base. So we went to Army base, we're going to put on film with the Jewish guys, talk to them, whatever. And there was a chaplain there, a Jewish chaplain. And we don't know how, we don't even know who told it to us. Somebody told my friend and I that there's 50 Israeli soldiers on this base. There's 50 Israeli soldiers on this base. We don't even remember who told it to us. Anyway, we met the chaplain, and we told him, we heard that there's 50 Israeli soldiers on this base. We want to meet them. He said, there's no such thing. It's not true. We told him it is true. We heard. So he said, okay, you know what? Let me check into it. The guy disappeared for 2 hours. We were getting so fed up because we had other places to go to. I mean, this is killing time, man. And we said, let's leave already. We couldn't get him, we couldn't reach him. No cell phones in those days. Waiting 2 hours. And we're just thinking, should we leave or not? And we say to each other, you know what? If this is so crazy difficult, it must be very worthwhile. Anyway, finally the guy rolled in after 3 hours. He comes back. And he says, yeah, there's 50 soldiers on the base. Come, I can bring you to them. He takes us in a car to this deserted area of the base. There were 50 Israeli guys. You know, for some reason, Chabad, the IDF loves Chabad. Anyway, we come in with them. We put tefillin on with all of them. We were talking to them. We were farbrengen with them. We were singing with them. It was unbelievable. It was such a successful afternoon. We said, this was worth it. Because we waited, we didn't give in and say, okay, let's forget it. It's too hard, let's just go. The fact that it was difficult, we said, okay, well, we went to do it. Later, we told our buddies in New York, our friends that deal with the consulate in New York, we told them, by the way, he says to us, my friends in El Paso, Texas, went and met the 50 Israeli guys. The consul general in New York said to him, what? That was a top secret military training. How in the world did you guys know about it and get to them? And he says, we're Chabad. What's the question? How we got to them? What's the question? We get to them. Because the Rebbe told us there's no such thing as no. The more difficult it is only because, again, everything, if Chassidus teaches everything in a positive, putting all the things together, it's a positive thing. And there's another thing Chassidic philosophy teaches us. And this is dependent on stories that happen in Yud's Kisser with the Alter Rebbe. A Jew, and this, you got to learn a lot and digest this. A Jew controls nature, not nature a Jew. We have a soul, which is a part of God, a neshama. Our neshama controls nature. Nature doesn't control a Jew if you give the right powers. There's a story with Alter Rebbe. When he was in prison for 53 days. And the jail was in one place, the interrogation was in a different place and across an island. And they would ferry the prisoners back and forth from the interrogation place to the prison. The Alter Rebbe was on the boat, and it was the middle of at night, whatever, and the Alter Rebbe sees there's a moon. He says, we need to do Kiddush Levana. Don't forget, he's a prisoner, not in the country clubs in America, in the Russian prisons under the Tsar. Yeah? He says, I need to do Kiddush Levana with you. So what happened? The Alter Rebbe stopped the boat. He didn't want to stop the boat. He didn't, the Alter Rebbe said, do me a favor, I need to stand up to do Kiddush, the brach on the moon. Stop the boat. He said, you crazy, you're a prisoner. I'm not stopping for nothing. The Alter Rebbe stopped the boat. How? I don't know. He stopped the boat. And then he turned to the guy, and he said to him, you see that I can stop the boat. So I'm asking you, I'm going to restart it, and I want you to stop the boat that I can do Kiddush Levana. And the guy saw he had no choice, he did it. The Alter Rebbe was on the way to prison with a black carriage in Russia that was for the highest level criminals. It was Friday morning, and they're on the way to prison. And the Alter Rebbe says, I'm not traveling on Shabbat, so I want you to go to a neighboring village. They said to me, you crazy, you're a prisoner. You're a prisoner of the highest caliber prisoner. We're not stopping. I said, okay, the axle of the wheel broke. They fixed it. Then the horse died. They got a new horse. Then the horse didn't move. Anyway, to make a long story short, the Alter Rebbe said to them, okay. They gave in. What are they going to do? So it was too late to go to a nearby village. They moved off to the side of the road, and the Alter Rebbe spent Shabbos there. These stories teach us a remarkable thing, and this for all of us. We control nature. Nature doesn't control us. If God wants us to do something, there's nothing at all that could stand in the way, Chassidic philosophy teaches us, except ourselves. Mm-hmm. Nothing can stand in the way of a mission that a Jew has. If God gave us a mission in life, there is nothing that a Jew cannot do, because we control nature. We have a soul, we're a part of God. God gives us a mission, we could do it. When a person can't, it's a cop-out. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying we cannot internalize this and really live it. But this is the fact. A Jew, Chassidic life from a Chassidic perspective teaches a Jew, we have the ability to control nature, not us. And yet another last thing, and then I'm going to open up for questions. If anybody has questions, we're going to open up for questions. But one last story I want to tell about a Hanukkah story that upset the Rebbe very much. In the White House, they light the menorah every year. The presidents used to light, they would attend, Carter, Reagan, they would attend the official Chabad menorah lighting in the White House. Under Carter's term, so I don't know what night of Hanukkah, maybe the third, fourth night. Fourth night. So they're lighting the menorah, and Carter says to the Chabad rabbi, I think it would look nicer if all 8 candles are burning. They're electric, but he said, I think it would look nicer if all 8 are burning. The President of the United States tells you something, you just don't go along and say, So he did it. He did it. And the Rebbe heard about it, because they wrote in the report to the Rebbe. And at the next Fabrengen, I was there, and the Rebbe lashed out, in the nice way that the Rebbe would do it, at the Chabad Shliach. He says, where's your Jewish pride? Because a guy, it doesn't matter who the guy is. It could be the President of the United States. Tonight is the 4th night of Hanukkah. You light 4 candles, not 8. God says to light 4, not 8. Where is your Jewish pride? Chassidus teaches us God created the world. Everything in the world was created for God, by God, for the people, by the people, for God, by God. Why are we second fiddle? And why do we have to be embarrassed from all the non-Jews in the world that look funny at us? And you know something? We can learn from the Muslims in this thing. The Muslims, they come to the White House, they say they want their diet. They wear their garb, and they ask for their diet. Why do the Jewish people have to say, well, okay, kosher style? Why? And in life, why is that like that? Chassidus teaches us, God created the world. Everything is good. There's a purpose of everything. Every detail matters. The Jewish pride is to accomplish the mission that we have in the world. God gave us something, whether it's money or brains or looks or whatever it may be. Use it for the right causes. Understand that God gives each one of us a mission. And the mission is to be a giver, not a taker. Whatever God gives us, God wants us to influence others. And then, by the way, you have a very rich lifestyle. Then you're living not only as a person, but you're living as a human being in a godly state, which makes your life much more meaningful, much richer, and much more beautiful. Any questions? No questions. That's great. What?
How come I don't feel like I'm able to control nature, even though I am able to?
I'm going to repeat the question. I know I can, but I don't feel it. I don't feel the ability. Did you ever do it? In other words, feelings are worthless. Action is what counts. Correct? Action is what counts, and we spoke about this morning. Action matters. Okay? One action is better than 1,000 sighs. Feeling, I don't feel I could do it. Do it, and you'll see that you could do it. You could accomplish it. This is a world of doing. There's a Chassidic expression in Yiddish. Winzig getracht, noch winziger gerät, und noch mehr getan. Farsi, somebody else will translate it. In English it means very little thinking, even less talking, and more doing. Instead of talking or thinking. Sometimes our problem is we think too much. Sometimes we think too much. And this is how Chassidic philosophy explains the advantage of the foot over our head. Can you imagine the following scenario? God says to the head, I want you to jump into boiling hot water. God says this to the head. The head starts rationalizing. Does he mean me? Maybe he means I should cool off the water first. Maybe he means tomorrow. The foot has no brains. When God says to the foot, jump into the water, the foot goes. Because the foot doesn't rationalize. The foot doesn't think. We have a mission to accomplish. You want to accomplish it? You could accomplish it because God says you could accomplish it. If not, He wouldn't give us the mission. You don't ask a child to do something they can't do. That's crazy. It's not normal to ask a child, to do something they can't do. If God asks us to do something, that means we could do it. Because God doesn't ask us to do things, the Gemara says, that we can't do. God is very normal, by the way. Well, whatever normal means. For God. God says do something. Why are we thinking too much? Just do it. You do it, you get it done. You start thinking, go to sleep and stay home. You ain't going to go anywhere.
I have a question.
Yes.
As usual.
What else is new?
So, what happens if there is chesed people that do good, but they don't necessarily get the right answer from God? Like, you are doing good, but you are not receiving the goodness that you deserve.
Okay. Nothing personal. I know this is your style questions. Nothing personal. Who knows better what we deserve? God or us?
God.
Right.
Okay. Now, because I think I deserve something, and God says, no, you don't, and therefore I'm not giving it to you because it's not good for you. So then God says, why should I give it to you? Just because you want it. You know, people always ask the question, why doesn't God answer our prayers? Yeah, we pray to God. God answers every prayer. Sometimes the answer is no.
Even if it's a good thing that you're...
How do we know what good is? Who knows better what's good?
Exactly.
Us or God?
Good is good.
No.
You think it's good, but not good. God.
Yeah, surgery is good or not?
So, in some cases...
No, that's you have pregnant, not have pregnant. Yes or no? Surgery is good?
No.
No? God forbid if somebody needs it, is it good?
Yes.
Okay, you want surgery? You want surgery?
No.
No. So what's the story? The story is, if you need it, it's good, and God is the one that decides if you need it. When God gives us good. Okay? But sometimes it's not what I think is good. Any parent that gives his kid, well, today that's what goes on later, but any parent that gives his kid whatever they want, because that's what the kid thinks is good, is a crazy parent, right? If the parent knows for the child it's not good, should the parent be a bad guy and say no, or be a good guy and say yes?
Bad good.
No, they should be a good guy by saying no.
Good guy.
There should be a good guy by saying no. God gives us what... So I do a lot of chesed. Yeah, a person could say, I do a lot of chesed. So I'm expecting the heavens to open up and money to fall down all over the place. And you know what? God says, you do chesed, you're going to get paid for it. But what's good for you, not what you think is good for you. And that's a very important Chassidic life lesson. God is good, the essence of good. The essence and nature of good is to do good. Everything God does is good. Just because, and this is about time of people start thinking about that. Just because in my eyes I don't see it to be good does not mean it's not good. Because God knows better. You know, there used to be a TV show, Father Knows Best. Only the old guys here would remember that. Okay, but Father knows best. Father in heaven knows best. Any other questions? Okay, if not...
I have a question.
What?
They said if your great-grandfather or for 7 generations, if they were not a good people and they did not good will, till 7 generations, when they born, they have to come and complete that. It's not punishment, but completing that. So give them hard life. So to complete that, it's not true.
It's not true. A soul does have to come down many times to fulfill all the mitzvot of the Torah and to learn all aspects of Torah. But the Torah clearly says children do not die for the sin of the parents.
But
The Torah says,
I
okay,
heard
one second.
from some Kabbalist that I don't know.
You talk to me about the wrong. You talk to the wrong guy about those Kabbalists. To me, they don't talk to me about it. It's not true. A person is responsible why they're not me. The great disciple of the Maggid of Zusha Anapoli was a very holy tzaddik. He said, when I come up to heaven, they're not going to whip me and beat me because I wasn't my Rebbe. How can I be my Rebbe? He was much greater than me. You know what they're going to whip me? Why I wasn't me. When we come up after 120 years, God is not going to compare any person to anybody else. God says, is going to judge us, and he says, you could have been this and this and this. Why weren't you what you could be? Not what somebody else could be. We have to be what we could be. The best that we could be. And that's what we spoke the whole evening. How do you get to the best? By realizing everything is good and there's a mission and a purpose and there's no little detail. Everything is important. That's the mission. But we're not punished because my great-great-grandfather was wicked.
They say it's not punishment, it's completing.
Do me a favor. It's not true.
Okay, I'm glad.
But I do want to mention that tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, at Via Rodeo, on Rodeo Drive in Dayton, will be our big Chabad menorah lighting, 6-foot sterling silver menorah. Come, tell your friends, it's from 7 to 8:30. Tomorrow night at Via Rodeo, okay? If there's no other questions, everybody's invited for the pizza.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again
Thank you.
for hosting.
Thank you so much.